Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Minerva Theatre. My name is Kate Mosse. I'm a novelist and a playwright, and it's my enormous pleasure to be here this evening to be interviewing Lisa Blair, who is the director of The Country Girls, who is here on her debut for Chichester. So that deserves another round of applause. Yes, exactly. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So, this adaptation has been done by Edna O'Brien herself, and it is an iconic novel. Often as a director, you have a dead author. That can be handy. But what's it like working on a piece that is brand new and with someone who is very, very iconic? I mean, she's an iconic writer. How did it come about that you and she have been paired?
Well, the project actually came about through Daniel Evans, the artistic director here, and I know Daniel from a little while back. He rang me and asked me if I would have a read of the play, which I did, and I fell in love with it straight away. So after I'd said I liked it, loved it, I met up with Edna, and then it was really just a sharing of ideas to see whether or not what was in my head was the same that was in her head at that very kind of early stage. But it's been fantastic because, as you say, having a living playwright, it means you can ask all the questions that you need, want, desire the answers to. And she's been really involved. So even during the rehearsal process, it was very useful to have her in our kind of first week of rehearsals, because it allows the actors to ask all the questions that they want to ask. Making my job a lot easier because Edna has the answers.
When you get something and you read it, do you immediately as a director start to think, ooh, I could do this like that, or I could have this sound or this light or this person? What is going through your mind? What's your first image? Is it people or this, the set?
That's a very good question.
Excellent.
It's probably the sound for me. I think when I first read something, it's what I hear. So it's the character voices, but it's also the world, the sounds that exist in that world. So from scene to scene, I'd say.
That's interesting. Do you think that? I don't think anybody's ever answered that before. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's definitely...
Because the sound design is astonishing. I mean,
it's beautiful. Isabel Waller-Bridge, who's done the music for it, and Chris Shutt are a fantastic pair. So to have them on board and working together is very exciting.
And then when you've said yes, and then you go, oh, I've just said yes, that sort of thing. You have it sounds like an immediate visceral reaction to it, thinking, yes, I can do this and I can bring something to it. Then how do you start to plot through? What's the next? Is it your creative team? Is it your actors? Is it your budget? You know, just tell us a little bit about how you do it.
The next stage is creative team. So by that it means designer, sound designer, composer, if you need a composer for original music, lighting designer. Have I missed anybody out? Yes, movement director as well.
They're all listening backstage. Going, tick.
I know, actually, some of them asked me what time the talk was, and I told them they weren't allowed in.
8:15, I think you're in.
So you start thinking of your creative team, and often, I mean, for example, with sound designer and composer, you have to look at the match of who would work best together and the styles that they are or that their work is, and then designer is the big one, because it's what the aesthetic is and whether or not you can work together, but also whether their reaction will be the same as yours. So it's pulling together that team, which is vital.
Because I saw it last night, and for those of you who've not yet seen it, it is utterly wonderful. I mean, it is a complete treat. You know, it felt like one of those evenings where I actually could have gone straight back in and watched it again to see all the things that I didn't capture first time around. But it did seem to me that the way that you had directed it and the interplay between the set and everything was absolute, and that I was just astonished, actually, by how beautifully real it was and also very surreal at the same time. So, at the heart of this, two girls from the country. You see what I did there? They're staggering performances from those two young actors. So once you have your creative team and you have your vision, presumably it's going to come down to if you can find those people. So what's the audition process like? Did you have people in mind, or did you do an open call out? How did you get them?
I mean, I was very keen, because it is an Irish play, I mean, it sounds very obvious, but you want an Irish team, an Irish cast behind you, really for them to tell that story. So I had a few people in mind who, of course, you then get in through the audition process. But I'd say this was a longer audition process for the two girls, because we had to find the right girls. And I mean, that even...
right with each other.
And right with each other. And I mean, that even extended to a few trips over to Ireland. I probably auditioned every young Irish girl that's living over there. So it was an extensive search, I'd say.
And when you say you wanted an Irish team around you, is that because of accent or is it because of sensibility? I think
it's sensibility and also telling their own history. I mean, I certainly feel that with the company that we've got. It's a very wide range of ages, from the young girls that we've got right up until other company members. And it's important for them to have ownership on the story. So I think that does give another dimension to it, knowing the world that the girls have grown up in or the other characters have come from, and that's ancestry. So, yeah. And
in terms of the nature of the book itself and the book that is the play, it is one of those novels in Irish history, in Irish literature. In 1960 it first came out. It really did blow everything open about what people wrote about, what they wrote about women and girls, and it was banned and it was burnt and all of these things that Edna O'Brien had to put up with. Do you leave all of that sort of history outside the rehearsal room, or do you encourage people to find a little bit more about it? Because it could unbalance things, presumably, that weight of history.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think the history is really important for the company to understand the story that they're telling and the context that story was written in. Also very hard not to have company members know who Edna O'Brien is. And actually, even if it's their mothers who have read the story and then it's been handed down to the next generation, we have a lot of that happened actually in the company. And but I think it is important to me that they knew the controversy that surrounded the story, because I think it gives an idea of the world that the girls sit in, and I think that has brilliant ramifications in terms of telling the story.
And does it, in a way, it's so not shocking for a modern audience, really, the idea that a young girl should be allowed to have feelings and fall in love with somebody and all of this sort of thing. So how do you keep it very much with that sensibility as it would have been at the time? Because that sort of being too knowing must be a problem in a play like this.
Yeah, I think that's that's interesting. I'd probably, on the other side of it, the opinion that the girls have on religion was probably an easier thing to find, because our approach or our beliefs with religion have changed, or we've become often more open to discuss about religion. So I think that element was an easier thing to explore in the room. In terms of the girls' journey with love, and I don't know. I think a lot of, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say a lot of women could probably watch the girls and think they've been in similar situations that are dangerous situations, or they recognise the feelings that the girls are feeling. So in a way, it can transcend the time zone as well.
Well, it is the parent of, what they were teenagers, they're now grown-ups, obviously. There is a moment, which isn't giving anything away, when the girls have put themselves in a situation with, as they're described, spivs. Yeah. And I think every parent in the audience was wanting to go, don't go there, don't go in that room with them, you could see. Yeah. But you also made a really wonderful decision, which was so much is out of our sights, rather than being explicitly shown. Now, was that a decision you made, or is that within the script?
It's a bit of both, actually. I think it's certainly Edna's... she says this... If you said she had adapted her novel, I think she'd actually say that it's a free-flowing imagination version. So that certainly came from her, and then we just took it a little step further, just in terms of keeping a style, actually, that's consistent throughout both acts.
Yes. And, you will forgive me for asking this... you are very young.
Thank you very much. Thank
you.
It
was obviously meant as a compliment from all of us. But actually, it's one of those questions about being a director, and you're working with a company of actors, many of whom are extremely experienced. So could you just share a little bit about, I hate to use the word journey, but I cannot think of an alternative. I'm a writer, you see, so I've used up all my words today. But your journey to be here now, because there is not just the vision that you have, there is that sense of control, being the person in charge of the room. And actually, you've had some extraordinary experiences in your very short career, and here you are. So say a little bit about how you came to be a director in the first place.
So I always thought I wanted to act. And then I went off to university, to York, and I actually studied archaeology. So something very, very different.
Hence this set, I think, probably.
Yeah, that's true. Hence the digging patch that we've got over there. And so when I was at university, I was acting a little bit, and York Theatre Royal opened up applications to direct something there. In their studio. So I applied with a whole load of my friends, and our pitch was accepted. So that was the first thing I directed there. And the guy who ran the theatre took me under his wing and gave me another job there. And then also kind of told me that I could do this for a job, which I thought was the most extraordinary thing ever. And so after that, I then did a MFA in theatre directing, which sounds very academic, but it's not at all. It just is it's a 2-year vocational degree in theatre directing. My second year, I was placed at West Yorkshire Playhouse in Leeds, and that was the time that I learnt how to assist, basically. The first time I really got onto professional theatre and understood what it was like, to run a building and to be a director, really.
And is it hard assisting? Because actually your job isn't to have the ideas, but to support the director's ideas.
It's interesting. I think the point where you start feeling that, you need to stop assisting.
Right.
So up until that point, the assisting that I've done, I've always found, it's the basis of how I direct, really, in terms of, I've been really lucky to assist a whole load of people from Daniel Evans, actually, Michael Grandage, Nick Heitner, Rupert Gould even. So it's a whole kind of spectrum. I don't think I've ever assisted a woman, I have to say, which is quite interesting. So because of that, it meant my toolbox was probably full of everything that I'd pilfered from everybody else, because that's really what you do. You just steal what everybody else is doing. And then from that, then it's making that leap to go and direct yourself, actually.
And what has been the biggest challenge for you as a director, do you think? Is it moving from a rehearsal room onto the stage? Is it the vision that you have if it doesn't necessarily work, when you do it? As a novelist, I often find I have a great idea, and the minute I start to work it, I discover it kind of falls to pieces. It doesn't quite hold. So what's been...
It's exactly that.
Is it that, is it?
Yes, exactly that. It is, because I think, and also, interestingly, with a piece like this, because of the poetic lyricism that you've got going throughout, your ideas match that poetry, in terms of, something that you want to achieve or an effect that you want to achieve on stage. And there have been moments that we've got on here, and obviously the beautiful thing that I've got going on inside my head is absolutely not achievable, as the production manager looks at me and says, we'll never achieve that. So it's then adapting and then making sure that that feeling that I have got in my head or in my heart, whatever it is then translated in a different way.
And with The Country Girls, do you think the play is the play you thought it was? And what I mean by that is, is it a story of two girls? Is it about sexual repression in Ireland? Is it about the society that people fled from? You will have felt all these things, but when you make it, it sometimes changes its character. Is it the play
I think it is the play that I thought it was when I first read it. I also wonder whether that's because I knew Edna's work already, actually. So in some way I felt like I knew her work. So I might have transposed that, actually, knowing the novel and then reading the play. But yes, I think that's also testament to the writing, actually, that at the heart of it is two girls who are trying to find themselves and see who they are and where they will be in the world in the future.
The thing that I thought was so amazing. I mean, everything about the production is so beautifully fashioned together, but with them at the heart of it. But when you leave the theatre thinking, God, I really hope it works out for her. You know, that you take them away. They feel bigger than the show you've just seen. So have you suggested to Edna she might write a follow-up?
Yeah, that's true. Well, she has. There is her novels was a trilogy, wasn't it? So we just need to
keep doing it
to imagine the next one. Yeah.
And finally, before we go out for some questions, with the nature of the work you do, when you've done something that is a beautiful piece in the way that this is, does it make you want to next time round do a musical or an enormous tap show? Do you like the scale of things to be different, or do you feel that you're finding a particular voice as a director?
Oh, that's hard. That's hard. I think for me, the thing that I'm most fascinated about, and this is a very vague answer to your question, is the vulnerability and fragility of people. So I think even if it is a massive musical, there's got to be a kernel of that somewhere in it. I think that's what I'm most attracted to when plays are sent to me and I have a read.
So it's character, really, for you, rather than pizzazz, as it were.
Yeah, I do like a bit of pizzazz, but yes.
Yeah, but I mean, and is it a sense of identification? Or is it actually just that you can bring that character to their best stage selves?
I think it's probably an identity thing. I think it's that. And I think it's storytelling, probably. It's probably more linked with character and storytelling. That's what most excites me, is being able to tell a story.
And, I mean, this will sound a bit of a daft question, but I ask it because some directors have given me a surprising answer on this one. When you are putting together a play such as this particular type of play, do you do it in order? Do you start at the beginning and do Act 1, Scene 1 and Act 1, Scene 2? Or do you sometimes muck things about so that they learn who they are as characters? Do you...
Well, that is a good question, because we had 5 weeks rehearsal, and our first week was actually with the two girls who play Kate and Baba, and the actor who plays Mr. Gentleman. So in that sense, I was quite keen that we had a look at the relationships between the three characters and charted those through. And we left all other scenes to the side until we had the full company join us in the second week.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason we did that was, I thought it was important that we established a relationship early on between Kate and Baba and explored what that was. Because as you say, a lot happens off stage that we don't see. So that was out of sequence. But then when the rest of the company joined, we then went in order.
And is there also a case with the Mr. Gentleman character of establishing him as someone important in... Because we don't actually meet him for quite a while, but he's very important in her mind, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
And what happens when if you've done that rather intimate thing, do they welcome everybody else in the company, or is there well, we were here first, No,
I think they're relieved to see other people. I think they probably had me talk at them for a week. So they're pleased when the rest of the company come in. And actually, I must say, and I know every director says this, and they've got to say it anyway, but we've got a really lovely company who get on. And that was evident, actually, from the start. So they've bonded very well.
You can see it from the audience, I think. You can feel it. And not all directors do say that, actually. Sorry, God, it's been a nightmare, this terrible thing. Has the legendary, the very great Edna O'Brien seen it yet?
Yes, she's been in for every preview. So she's seen every run we've done since we've been in the rehearsal room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's actually been with us in Chichester since we came up to Chichester. So for the final week of rehearsals, and then teching and opening. Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Terrified, absolutely terrified. I was quite lucky, actually, because in our final week of rehearsals in London, she popped in for half an hour, because we've had quite a lot of script changes or text changes as we've gone along. So we've been continually updating the
And is that because you felt it doesn't work as spoken, or an actor said something? How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of both. So sometimes, we need a little bit more information, or it's clarity, even just for little names and stuff, just so we can chart people through. I mean, we're still doing that. We've got new changes in this evening, actually. But also... for action as well. Sometimes, you know, on a stage that's as wonderfully big as this, sometimes the, you know, lines can't carry, you know, a transition. So it's practical things like that. So when she came in on that last Friday, she asked to pop into rehearsal. So that was kind of out of the blue and very nerve-wracking. But she was pleased with what she saw. So I think that was a nice middle stage for me to go through, so that when she saw a run, she had a feel of what style it was. And
yes, because that must be a terrifying thing if the author hasn't been involved and then suddenly they turn up when the paint's almost dry.
Yes, absolutely. And also I think with something like this, it's, you know, if you have a look at the play text, I don't know if they've got it here, but if you have a look at the play text, often the stage directions, we're doing something different just because of the, you know, the fact we're playing on 3 sides, or so we've interpreted the stage directions for this production, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think that can also be, because it is a style thing, so that's an interesting thing to see. But it's been brilliant having her around, and she gives notes, and
God, there's loads of people giving you notes. Yes. We're going to take a few questions from the audience. I think we have a microphone. Does anybody have a question they'd like to start with? Gentleman up there. Thank you.
This may not be a particularly profound question, but was there any particular reason for the set being sloping?
Aha!
That's a very good question.
It's a very good question.
Was there any particular reason? I think it just gives us a bit of height. So when we're on 3 sides like this, it's often quite useful because actually I can stage quite a lot of people on stage, so I can put people downstage and the focus can still be on the people who are upstage. So it's more a focus thing for the audience.
Was that a weird thing to go from a rehearsal room that was flat to this? Did it actually cause any trouble?
Or did we downplay it quite a lot. So in theatre terms, this is quite a small rake. So there was often talking about it being a very small one, so that when the actors get on it, they don't freak out.
Sort of towering at the back. Lovely, thank you. Another question.
Your lighting design beautifully delineates different areas on the stage and operates the transitions between scenes. So could you say something about how working with the lighting designer to do that?
Yes, I can. That's a very nice question to answer. So Lizzie, who's our lighting designer, is fantastic, and her process is very much being in the room a lot. So I had her in the room at least once or 2 days a week from the very start of rehearsal. So she learns the piece as we go along, and her input is very, it's invaluable really as I go along, because it's as much about how she can create a transition or a feeling given what our stage looks like, you know, what our lighting equipment is. And then in our final week of rehearsal, she was with us all the time. So in that sense, she learns the piece as we go along, and it's a continuous dialogue. So she sits on the same table next to me, and then we have a conversation about, you know, for example, when we go into the convent, I say, you know, we've got the incense or whatever it is, and the feeling is, this is the mood. And so out of that, she can then interpret it with her amazing skills.
Yes, it's so beautiful, both the soundscape and the lightscape. Really,
it's very delicate.
Yes, very delicate.
Yeah.
And we're not going to say the thing that we really like, because it will spoil it for the people who haven't yet seen it. Is there another question?
There was a gentleman over there.
Gentleman there. Thank you very much.
As the play's in the preview, do you think you're nearly at the finished production?
That's not a nice question. Yes, I do, is the answer. The way it works is that all the actors are called during previews. We call them in at 2:00 in the afternoon, and then I work with them from 2 till 6 o'clock, I think it is, 2 till 6. So, and I'm have the notes that we have, and we do it on stage. So we have the composer, the sound designer, the lighting designer. We have complete tech support and stage management. But I'm filling all those hours at the moment, and even today. So I suspect tomorrow we will take our foot off the pedal.
Can I ask you another question? Why do you think the play hasn't been put on before?
Well, it has. There has been a version of it before, and that was done in Ireland by a company called Red Kettle. It was about in 2011. However, since that production, Edna has actually revised the text. So although it still has the same, it's still called The Country Girls, it's a new version.
Obviously, in adapting from a book for the play, there must be changes, as you've already mentioned. But are they fine-tuning changes, or are there fairly major changes from the original story?
Thank you. It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few big changes, I'd say, from the original story. I mean, it's little things like, and I'm not giving anything away here, but some scenes are set in a convent. So some girls who feature heavily in the convent in the novel, obviously we don't have the resources to have lots of girls who are in the convent. So it's little storylines like that don't make it to stage. And in terms of changes that we're doing here, I mean, a scene that was in on Saturday night is now not in. So that's a very big change. You know, and that's often because until you really, it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but until you really put a piece in front of an audience, it's really the first time I actually see what it is that we have made as a team, really. You kind of look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and that is the nerve-wracking thing of having all of you sitting in there and seeing the interaction between actors and audience. And by that I don't mean rapturous applause, and I don't mean laughing at a joke that I thought would get a laugh, but it's just about the rhythm of the piece. And so it becomes clearer in that sense.
So with a scene that goes, and that's quite significant, is that because you realise it actually muddies the waters rather than clarifies, or it doesn't move the story forward, or you don't need it? What made you decide that a whole scene...
it can be all of those. So, you know, the cuts that we put in, often because we can get a move on, actually, and we're more interested in hearing the next thing that someone's saying rather than exposition. And, you know, with this particular scene, it was more because it's towards the latter end of the play, and I realised that we as an audience want to know what happens next, and I wasn't sure this scene was serving what it did actually on the page, and then putting it up on its feet. It does something quite different.
It's a tough call, isn't it? I mean, in Nicholas Heitner's book, Balancing Acts, there is a description of actually having to cut quite near press night, and which resulted in one person being cut entirely, you know, done all the way through, and then he did not go on, you know, because the play did it. Is there a last question? Because I'm afraid we're going to have to be slightly briefer than normal. There we are. Lady up there, thank you very much.
Thank you. Your background, as you described, in Leeds, Sheffield, York, all quite different, actually, to where we are at the moment. But the theatres, how do you find now, coming down to Chichester and working in this particular setting, this theatre, is it in contrast to some of those others that you have directed in? Is it good, or what are some? Of course, it's good, but what might be some of the problems?
I think the most interesting thing for me here has been that there's a very loyal audience here. A regular audience, actually, I should say, and that's not always the case when you work in other theatres. It's actually dependent on the play that you're putting on, who is in it, actually. So I think the feeling here is quite different because it's much. I'm telling you about yourselves now, but it feels more of a community when you come into this, and also it's a beautiful setting. So I'd say that's also has a huge impact, I think, on the actors. When the sun was shining today, everyone's very excited about spending their next few weeks here.
Picnicking in the park.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I think everybody here will join me in wishing you the very best of luck for press night tomorrow. It's very, very kind of you, particularly when you're still working the play, to give up an evening and come and talk about it when you haven't yet opened. We do appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Blair.